Hi, this is Vet. Welcome to my studio. Today we're going to do a project that has to do with rock painting. As you can see, there are a wide variety of ways to paint a rock. It's really kind of unlimited. Here you will see I have painted a design that's in a matte finish. That means it's not very shiny, but it's still very beautiful. I've used this matte finish on my rocks that I put in my garden. These are excellent for putting in the garden because after all the sticks have fallen over, they're still going to be there. You can write any kind of words you want on there or any kind of design. Here I've used a glossy sheen, and I'll show you how to make that happen also. Sometimes a rock dictates what you're going to put on it. And when I saw this one, I thought, that looks like an eyeball. So that's what I painted. I painted an eyeball. I also look for interesting shaped rocks. This one, I had to kind of live with it for a little while because I kept looking and turning it. And then one day I saw the shape of a dog's head. So that's what I painted, a dog. Here's another one that was shaped like a dog's snout, and so I painted the dog. But you can do any kind of design. You're really kind of unlimited. You can also do ones that have words on them or just a beautiful design. So let's get started. Put this right here. Now you can find rocks everywhere. You can find some that have been carved by nature, like this one. It has a lot of holes and pot marks in it. It's probably not the best for painting because the paint gets down into those little crevices and you'll have like little bubbles. Unless you want a texture, you can do that. But they come in all different shades and sizes. This rock has been polished, but that is the natural color. If you can't find them in the park or in your yard, you can always go to the local Home Depot or home decorating place and buy a bag of rocks. When I'm painting rocks, sometimes I'll paint them all ahead of time. And I'll just line them up because I have extra paint left over and I don't want to waste the paint. So I'll just paint some background colors like I did here. If you paint something and you decide, I don't really like that design, or you spell the word wrong, because that does happen too, you can always paint over it. I use primer. You can also just use regular acrylic paint, but you have to be careful. If you use a light color over design, it will bleed through. So you have to maybe put more than one coat of paint. Also, when you're deciding which side to paint, you need to check to see how it sets on a flat surface. On this one, I went ahead and I like the way this feels, and I just went ahead and painted on it, but I didn't check it ahead of time so that when I put it down, it would not stay straight. So I should have painted it on this side because it lays flat. So that's also something to consider when you're selecting your rocks. So of course you're going to need rocks. You're going to need brushes. Here I have some round brushes, some flat brushes, but mainly small brushes for doing detailing. The flat brush, this bright, is used to paint big surfaces. But when I get to my detailing, I use my smaller brush, either flat or round. I have some other things I'm going to show you for making details. You can also use permanent markers. Now, they don't have to be Sharpie brand, they can be any brand, but not watercolor based. And it will say permanent somewhere along this side of the pen. So make sure when you're selecting that it is a permanent pen. Okay? So let's take this one. Okay? I'm going to be using acrylic paint, and you can use any kind of acrylic paint, whether it's metallic or just regular paint. It doesn't matter as long as it's acrylic. Watercolor does not work really well. You can do it, but it takes several coats, so you have to be careful when you're working with watercolor. But I recommend using acrylic paint. You're going to need some paper towels for spills. You're going to need a cup of water, and then you're ready to go. So since mine has already been painted in the background, I'm going to use my little acrylic palette here, a fancy palette. But if you have any kind of surface where you can put paint, that would be great. But I'll use a paper towel and I use a paper plate. If I have any left over, I just cover it with saran wrap. Then I don't waste it. So I'm going to add a little bit of blue and maybe a little bit of white so it shows up. And you can mix your paint directly onto your rock surface. And then I'll put some red dots on here, like so. And again, acrylic paint is very forgiving. The good news is that it dries really quick. But then the bad news is it dries really quick. So you don't really have to have a design in mind. You can just kind of paint in free form and using any kind of pattern that you want. And again, you can paint over it if you don't like it. But what I found, if I keep painting, I'll find more things to put on it. When I first started painting, a lot of times I would want to quit and start over. But trust me, if you keep going, you'll be surprised what you can do. So now I'm going to switch over to a permanent marker. Now one thing about using a permanent marker, you do not want to get it directly on your wet paint. It will smear and it will clog and you won't be able to use it anymore. So I'm going to come right up to the edge and I'm going to draw some shapes, but I'm not going to touch the wet part. Maybe come back later after it's dried a little bit and do some highlighting. The other thing I like to use is a paint pen. These are a lot of fun to use. They have acrylic in them, they're non-toxic. You shake them to get that paint moving around in there. But before you paint on your object, you want to test it. Now you can see how it's really watery and a lot of paint came out. I do not want to have a big blob of paint on my artwork, so I test it first. Then I go here and I can draw a line. This way I'm able to control the flow of my paint. And they have big nibs or big points or little nibs, and that just refers to how big this tip is. If it gets kind of fuzzy and worn out, you just take some scissors and clip it down and make them smaller. But they last a long time. There's one way to get detailing. Always put your caps back on so that they dry. One of my favorite colors to use is gold. Gold really makes an object pop. There's silver too, but I think gold is my favorite. So this is already dry, so I'm going to come back in here, put some gold. I need to test that just a little bit, get some of that paint flowing. There we go. And a little bit more right here, and maybe underneath. I don't like pressing down directly on my object. Again, I'll get way more point. I can always add more paint, but if I get a big blob of it, it's going to smear and I'm going to be really unhappy about that. Okay. The other really cool thing you can do is use fingernail polish. And I talked about sealing and making it shine. The good thing about working with fingernail polish is that, number one, it comes with its own brush. And it's nice and shiny. I think I'm going to just make a straight line on that one. There you go, that really shows up good. it takes a little bit longer to dry. But as you can see, it dries really shiny. And it seals it. When you're sealing your rock after you've painted it, you can use something called Mod Podge. Or if you don't have Mod Podge, you can also use glue. Just dilute the glue and then paint the whole thing over. And it'll look white at first, but after you let it dry, it helps to seal it and it'll be nice and shiny. You probably know someone who has lots of fingernail polish that they have never used. And if the lid is really tight, you can take pliers, or I use a nutcracker, and the top comes right off. I like this one because it has a little bit of glitter in it. And it's very transparent. So the glitter will be on top of the color. Again, this helps to seal it. You don't need to use Mod Podge or glue or anything else because it seals itself. And as you can see, some of the places where I've already painted are already dry. Okay, so you can see kind of a sparkle. So really it's kind of unlimited what you can do by using any one of these mediums. Acrylic, permanent marker, paint pens, or that fabulous nail polish. Have a great time finding rocks and painting them. Until next time, this is Vet. I will talk to you soon. Bye.